Alright, next up we have the fill and eraser tools. I'm just going to go back to my first untitled thing here. The eraser tool is this one. There's two kinds, or three kinds actually. This one sort of attempts to pick the background and only erase that area, although it's not always very accurate. Hence this tolerance thing up here, you can change it to be more tolerant and less tolerant. You can also change its size here as well. You can always use the normal eraser tool, which will just start deleting stuff, like you can see there. You can increase its size using the brackets, like every other tool in Photoshop, and it'll just start erasing everything like that. If I have something with a background, let's see if I can find something useful. We'll go back to this one. So using the background eraser tool, I could attempt to try and get rid of the black section, and it'll try to be smart and only erase that. But as you can see, sometimes it's not quite as accurate. You can see it's attempted to sort of leave a bit of this grey section here. If I was to make it a bit smaller, it would probably be a little bit more accurate, and it'll try to sort of stick to the edges of the lines, as you can see there. You kind of good for tracing the edges of stuff, although you might, if you're trying to go for a straight transparent background, you'll probably have to do this once through with this background eraser tool, and then go back to your normal eraser tool and sort of get rid of the greyish sections that you didn't like. So often good if you do it coupled with this tool. So if you go around the edges with the background eraser tool, then go around again with the normal eraser tool, usually comes up with sort of a much better background removal for things that you can't use, like the magic wand tool correctly. Like for example, this one with all different colors, it's kind of hard to use the magic wand tool properly. Alright, fill tool pretty much does what it sounds like. It fills stuff up with color. You can just change its color here to whatever you want. You can manually type in the colors if you know it. If you're particularly in web design, if you know a color code, you can put it in there and it'll come up. So yeah, filling, really straightforward. But what you can also do is hold down on it. You can get the gradient tool, and this looks pretty good for making like straight backgrounds without any other images or anything. If we just make a new document, the gradient tool is pretty handy. You just click at one point and drag to another point, and then the color moves along that. So holding shift will make it a straight line, and you can see black to white and all in between. If I press undo, Control Z, and then do it from a corner to a corner, you can see the gradient sort of goes on that angle. So it moves depending on the direction of the line. Of course, you can change the color. If you double click on the, if you click on this, you can see the ones that are pre-made. But if you double click on the color itself, it comes up with this little gradient editor, and this is where you can customize whatever you want. So you click on your first color, you can change it to whatever you want down here. If I want to make it black, or maybe I'll just make it, I'll make it red, and then I'll click on this next one over here. I can make that one whatever color I want. Maybe I'll make it blue. Okay, and if you want, you can add more colors to the middle by clicking on these little dots, or you can delete them. Again, you can see you could just keep making multiple colors fading into each other. So at the moment, this is going to fade from red to blue, and it'll get a little bit purple in the middle because that's what red and blue do. Now I'm going to drag my gradient across my screen, and you can see that I've created this hideous looking color gradient. Okay, so that's what you can do with color tool, with the gradient tool. This is the blur, sharpen, and smudge. This allows you to add a little bit of fine tuning. Generally used more for photo editing and stuff, but if you see its effects here, I can blur. If I make my brush a bit bigger just so you can see it more obviously, I can like blur the edges of this and it starts losing focus. So kind of good. It's usually better for photo editing if you want to make something stand out, but the more I go over this, the more blurry it gets. As you can see, this bit's blurry and the rest of it's all sharp now. You can also increase its amount. If I was to crank it up and then start doing it, the blurriness would get more blurry much more quickly. Sharpen, obviously the opposite of blur, but you don't want to do them one on top of the other, otherwise the quality just starts getting funny. Alright, wow, that came out really strong. Smudge, similar to blur, but it sort of just smudges the colors just like it looks. Just like it says, and yep, it looks pretty ugly. I guess it can be useful if you want to smudge something. Alright, these ones, dodge, burn, and sponge, you can play with those. Pretty much, this will darken stuff. It'll play around with all random things that they do. This is the pen tool, allows you to select areas, but we're not really going to go with that. This one, on the other hand, is the text tool, which will be very useful for you when you're making buttons and things. So new option, new canvas. Generally, web design buttons are usually like, I don't know, 200 by probably about like 80 or 70. That looks pretty button-esque. We're going to zoom in a little bit using Alt and scroll, and then we're going to draw a box with our text tool. And this is where we can type in whatever we want. So I'm going to call this button. Now, if you can't see it, it's probably because the text is too small or too big. And in this case, it's too big because it's 90 pt, whatever that is. Press Control A to choose whatever you just wrote, and then go up here, and I'm going to shrink that down to 11. And there you can see my button. It's very small. I'm going to make that a bit bigger. Go with 30. There's my button, and it's a bit blurry because we've zoomed in to 455%, but if I was to zoom out back to 100, you could see that it's not actually blurry. It's just the zoom. So I'm going to move that probably to about the middle using my selection tool. Allows you to move stuff. If I want to re-edit that again, I can either double click on it over here, and it gets back to my text tool, or I can use my text tool to try and click it, but sometimes it'll accidentally create a new text field. So if I was to like miss my click, like if I click on it, that's fine, but if I was to miss my attempted selection, it would make another one and make another layer over here, which is kind of annoying, and I've seen people do this and it frustrates them. So delete that layer. Easiest way, double click on your text layer over here. Alright, you can change the text sort of focus if you want to make it bold or smooth or crisp or whatever. I'm going with bold, and I'm going to make it bigger again. There we go. And now using my selection tool, I'll just drag it into the middle, and we have pretty much a button that you could use in web design or whatever. Okay, you can emphasize your text using this FX or effects option. So with that selected, go down to effects, and you can do all these different kinds of effects. I'm not going to go through them all because they're actually really easy to use. But I'm just going to go with stroke because that's pretty easy. You can change its thickness. You can change, which position you want to be in, whether it's inside or the center or the outside. You can do whatever you want. You can make it blend with its original or whatever. You can make it transparent. I'm going to go with 3 pixels is fine. Press OK. And there we have my stroked button. And there you go. So let's give it an outline. All right. Just say I wanted to get rid of the background and make this a transparent button. I just have to delete that. And there I have a background. Alternatively, I could create a feathered edges look. Okay, and that's the last thing I'm going to show you in this tutorial. Using the selection tool, go up here to the top which says feather, and the bigger you make this, the softer the edges get, and the more they sort of eat up the inside of the image. So I'm going to make that, I don't know, 5 pixels, and now all you got to do is draw a box in the area that you want the feather to be. So I'm going to draw it there so that the feather goes around on the outside, and you can see the feather is taken effect by the curved selection. And now if I was to press Control C, Control V, I've just pasted that feather option, the area that I've selected. So if I delete this background or turn off that background, you can see my feather effect around the outside.